Welcome. I want to thank you for joining us at my collaborative team's CollaborEAT Live series. We are a 10 to 15 minute video conversation on Facebook and YouTube Live, taking place every Wednesday at 1 o'clock p.m. CollaborEAT Live provides digestible content to both professionals and the public on a variety of topics involving the collaborative process. Our CollaborEAT Live episodes consist of a variety of topics driven by our followers and our MCT members. Topics range from ethical considerations, best practices, problem solving, marketing, specialized topics, and other practice tools that we find valuable to our membership. Whether you join us live or watch in your own free time, you can count on our weekly CollaborEAT Lives to provide you with thought-provoking conversation and educational information about the collaborative process. Today, it is my pleasure to welcome my college friend, Steve Turner, who I might add was the one throwing water balloons off the balcony and who I avoided in college, but reconnected with 40 years later because Steve was doing some amazing, amazing work in the field of anti-human trafficking and domestic violence. Steve Turner is a nationally recognized expert in these areas. He was formerly served as the Chief Counsel to the Pennsylvania Department of State, Chief Counsel to the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, and Chief Counsel to the Pennsylvania Office of Inspector General. And in talking to Steve one afternoon about the work that he does, it occurred to me that some of the trauma Steve was seeing in the work he was doing really related to the trauma that we see in the collaborative process. So Steve, can you tell us how trauma hits our clients in the collaborative process, where you see a correlation between the trauma and the victims you see in what you do and the trauma now that you've been trained collaboratively in the collaborative process?
Yeah, well, thank you, Becky. I've been involved in anti-domestic violence work since 1998. And I've represented pro bono countless women and children in Pennsylvania on protection from abuse cases, where they were literally at times beaten to within an inch of their life. And the trauma, the physical, emotional toll that takes on women and children has been horrific. And I've got more war stories that I can share. I've also been involved for a number of years now on anti-human trafficking efforts and the trauma that the survivors of trafficking cope with. Can you imagine someone being raped 20 to 30 times a day? I mean, so, I hope no one ever encounters that type of level of trauma, complex trauma. But the point is this: the wonderful work that collaborative family practice is doing, the collaborative divorce process. You know, we have to assume, obviously, and I know folks are trained on this, that a certain number of participants, of clients, and their children are going to have survived different levels of domestic violence, whether it is physical, emotional, or both. And there's other types of trauma that affect people. And trauma is something for the therapists out there, they will tell you, and obviously I agree, that trauma is trauma in terms of it can hardwire your brain. It affects you, and it can be triggered through a variety of things to send you back into the trauma scape, which nobody wants to be in. I think the beauty and power of collaborative, I mean, there's so many things, but one thing is that we can work with folks who have survived different levels of domestic violence trauma, as long as we can ensure a safe space, physically, emotionally, psychologically, and get them through to the other side with a divorce, with an agreement, a parenting plan that is going to help mitigate the trauma that either client has gone through and the children, mitigate it and hopefully have a path forward. But this trauma, it hides. I mean, sometimes, and I have dealt with countless women and children and a few men who've been victims of domestic violence. I mean, the stats are horrible. They're 95% of the victims are female and children. But so that's how I'm going to talk about it with those kind of horrific, lopsided statistics. But the trauma that goes through this, then, one of the wonderful things about collaborative is without litigating, without getting into yet another war, a war that is costly financially, in terms of time, in terms of uncertain outcome, and can trigger even more bad memories and PTSD. That what collaborative can do, as long as we can safety plan and work with folks, is to smooth the roadway. Go ahead, Becky.
Steve, one of the things that was most compelling in our conversations that came across to me about the work you were doing was the kind of compassionate listening skills that you clearly have developed over the 30 years of doing this. How does one become a compassionate listener?
You know, I guess there's a course you take. I don't know. I mean, I think some of this is the first key, I think, is having an open heart and an open mind. And while that sounds trite and like a Hallmark card, but it's not. I mean, when you open yourself to being compassionate to a human being that you don't know exactly where they have come from and what they have gone through, but you do it without judgment, with an open door. A lot of times I encounter people in a different space than you folks do in collaborative. I mean, I'm encountering people at times where they have literally escaped from with their lives in either domestic violence or human trafficking situation. I mean, some of them literally had a 15-second window where they were either going to be alive or dead. So, and then here I am. I am a Caucasian male. I am the face. I am the face of a trafficker. I am the face of a John. I am the face of an abuser. So then how do I approach someone who might look at my face and wonder if I am trustworthy at all? And all I can tell you is the projection outward of a simultaneous physical safety, there is no physical threat. Emotional safety, meaning no judgment, compassion, not pretending to know what you've gone through or pretending that I understand it in terms of experiencing it. But being there, again, with that open door without judgment to pass you first through physical and then emotional safety. And then let's work on a path. That compassionate listening. And I'll tell you, there's times I have 10 to 15 to 30 seconds to either make it work or not. But over the years, when you see horrible things, you learn to accept people. And you learn to say, no matter what has happened to you, it is not your fault. No one deserves this. And I am going to help you to the best of my ability.
So that brings us to my next question. My collaborative team is going to be doing a presentation at the FACP conference about unpacking our clients' baggage relating to trauma. How does one go about encouraging or creating that space for the client to unpack the baggage, number one? And number two, we've talked about vicarious trauma, where it may trigger something in the professional about their own baggage. So how do we create that space for the client? And then how do we recognize our own triggers?
Yeah, so first part, the creating this space for the clients, for the, especially it will be, again, let's use the percentages. The wife / mother, she has been a victim of domestic violence. If there's children, the children have experienced it, at the very least, through hearing God knows what, through closed doors and walls and cars and everything else. So setting the tone with having the mental health professional, the neutral there, to ensure that that space is safe, again, physically and emotionally. I mean, one of the things, Rhonda Fuchs, who's a fantastic therapist, is going to be one of the 5 of us presenting at FACP. I mean, you know, Rhonda will strategically place herself at the head of the table so that the clients are physically separated, but which conveys that we're all at the table. That's collaborative, as opposed to in our bunkers, in our trenches with our guns out, which is litigation. But we're at the table, but Rhonda and others like her, and this is the lawyer's job too, to ensure with each of the clients that we understand the landscape and we're going to take care of people. We're going to ensure that those rules of engagement of calm, compassionate, respectful communication are here too. Or again, we take a break, we'll take a time out, and we'll collect ourselves, we'll huddle, we'll collaborate, we'll make things happen. In terms of, and those are baby steps that you take on the front end, and then you keep reaffirming it as you go through. You have to be careful for and always on the lookout for. And this is something that, you know, I mean, I think I bring to the table and I can bring to the table. I mean, after standing in court opposite one perpetrator after another, one aggravated assault or attempted murder after another, I can read signs and symptoms and the most subtle forms of intimidation. And so you need to have your head up for that. In terms of vicarious trauma, so many of us carry trauma that, again, we don't talk about normally. In fact, what we do our best to keep moving forward in our professional and personal lives and not be dragged down by it. But everybody can have a trigger, sometimes multiple triggers. So tuning yourself in advance, this collaborative process, what might come up, what might I discover, so that I can ensure that I am fully at the table, but I'm protecting myself too, and my emotional safety, and taking a break at that time.
What can you tell us about in a quick excerpt about the presentation we'll be doing at the FACP conference?
I mean, we got an amazing team. Number one, Becky, you're there. I'm there. Ed Sachs is there. Rhonda Fuchs is there. Tabitha Marazi is there. Tab brings an amazing capacity with the child specialist and her unique skill set. Ed is a fantastic broker of incredible solutions in the financial world. You and I play the lawyer card. Rhonda, again, is unequaled in terms of the mental health perspective. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at that unpacking the baggage, because what that means is this: people, whether they walk into this process with matching Louis Vuitton, you know, a 12-set luggage thing out of Paris or Rome, or as I have seen, people who've literally escaped almost with their lives with 2 plastic trash bags, those black plastic trash bags with duct tape on the bottom. Inside of all of those suitcases and bags are memories, hopes, fears, and trauma. And we're going to unpack it in a compassionate way.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. If you would like to be a guest on my collaborative team's CollaborEAT Live, please contact us at info@mycollaborativeteam.com. We would welcome you to be a guest on our show. Steve, thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thanks.